Thugs attacked an old lady, not knowing her ex-police dog was ready to fight back. When a group of thugs targeted an elderly woman, they thought she would be an easy victim, but they couldn't have been more wrong. Unbeknownst to them, her loyal companion was an ex-police dog, trained to protect and defend. What happened next was a dramatic and unexpected turn that left the attackers regretting their choice. In the southern suburbs of Montevideo, where narrow streets weave between charming old houses with terracotta roofs, lived 70-year-old Maria Ramirez. With her silver hair and kind brown eyes, she resided in a classic single-story colonial-style home. Its thick white stone walls and high ceilings sheltered a picturesque courtyard paved with aged geometric tiles, featuring a small fountain at its heart adorned with an angel figure weathered by time. The fountain gently gurgled as lush oleanders lined the walls, their sweet fragrance filling the air. In the backyard, Maria tended a vegetable garden with rows of tomatoes and fragrant herbs. Beneath an old mango tree, a flat stone, worn smooth by years of use, served as a peaceful resting spot. In her garage, neatly hung garden tools with weathered wooden handles bore the marks of time and care. A workbench against the far wall was dusted with sawdust, while tin cans neatly held an assortment of nails and screws. A garden hose with a brass nozzle lay coiled between rows of parsley and mint, where Maria's loyal companion, Cosmo, often rested. He was a powerful German shepherd with glossy black fur and piercing amber eyes, ever watchful and protective. His gaze carried a unique alertness and discipline, a legacy of his years in a police special unit. In Maria's room stood an old mahogany dresser with copper handles inherited from her mother. It displayed family photographs in the silver frames, lightly dusted. A large mirror above the dresser reflected the small garden outside, where a narrow path made of river pebbles woven through the stones. A cuckoo clock from Switzerland marked time in the living room, where a worn rocking chair with faded upholstery stood as a quiet centerpiece. The story of how Maria and her dog met began 3 years ago at a city animal shelter. On a rainy October day, Maria visited the shelter to donate old blankets for the cats and dogs. The shelter smelled strongly of disinfectant, and damp for the concrete floor had been thoroughly cleaned but still bore traces of long use. Metal cages lined both walls of a long corridor, echoing with the barking of dozens of dogs. Cosmo was in the last cage, pressed into a far corner. His ribs were visible beneath his matted fur, and gray patches of stress marked his face. A shelter worker shared Cosmo's remarkable story. Once a top police dog in an anti-crime unit, he had participated in hundreds of operations, captured over 50 criminals, and uncovered major drug shipments, earning numerous awards. During a high-risk raid, Cosmo was injured while protecting his partner, forcing his retirement. His temporary caretakers struggled with his strong temperament and eventually left him at the shelter with only a worn collar and a bowl. When Maria first saw him, Cosmo didn't whine or rush to the bars, but met her gaze with the calm, piercing look of a seasoned working dog, tired yet dignified and ready for a new start. Within an hour, Maria completed the paperwork and brought him home. The first weeks were challenging. Years of police service had left their mark. Cosmo routinely inspected the house's perimeter, checking every corner as if on a mission. At night, he was haunted by nightmares, likely memories of his last raid. He would wake up with a soft growl, ready to act. Maria patiently helped him adapt to a peaceful life, feeding him specially prepared meals by hand, speaking to him for hours while gently scratching the scar behind his ear, a reminder of an old injury. Gradually, Cosmo began to thaw, though his professional instincts remained. He slept on a worn green rug by the front door, choosing a spot where he could watch 3 rooms at once. Just as he'd been trained, his stainless steel bowl was always filled with fresh water, which Maria replaced 3 times a day. Next to it lay a battered toy, an orange rubber ball resembling training equipment from his previous life. Every morning started with their traditional walk, which Cosmo treated as a patrol. At precisely 7, Cosmo nudged Maria's bedroom door, signaling breakfast time. After their meal, they began their morning walk, with Cosmo meticulously inspecting bushes and scanning the pavement. Passing St. Michael's Church, he remained watchful, even eyeing stray cats, a habit from his police days. Each day, they stopped at St. Garcia's bakery, where Cosmo paused outside to assess the area before entering. Inside, antique brass scales gleamed, and warm bread fogged the glass displays. One spring morning, amid the scent of blooming orange trees, Cosmo's instincts suddenly kicked in, alerting him to an unseen threat. He frequently stopped sniffing, and his powerful muscles tensed like a coiled spring. Later that day, near the bakery, Maria noticed two suspicious strangers, whom Cosmo immediately identified as potential threats. A skill honed from years of dealing with criminals, Eric Diaz, a tall and lean man with a scar from a prison fight, wore a worn leather jacket with studs and heavy army boots. Cosmo instantly noticed his distinctive gait and his habit of constantly looking over his shoulder, a typical behavior of a repeat offender. The second man, Samuel Cruz, a stocky man with a limp in his right leg, constantly fiddled with a gold lighter engraved with faded initials. A snake tattoo on his neck, inked in green and black with striking red eyes, was the kind of marking Cosmo had seen many times during raids on dens. That evening, heavy clouds loomed as rain began to fall. On Maria's kitchen table, a half-finished cup of herbal tea sat beside a newspaper, its pages rustling in the breeze from an open window. Maria tried to read, but Cosmo's tension, honed by years of service, was palpable. Near midnight, Cosmo's sharp ears caught a faint scraping at the front door, a sound he instantly recognized. Taking a tactical position, he prepared for action. When masked intruders Eric and Samuel burst in, Cosmo responded with flawless precision. He immobilized Eric by biting his arm, forcing him to drop the crowbar, and maintained his grip despite sustaining a deep cut above his eye. He had been trained to never let go. Blood clouded his vision, but he refused to give up. Eric tried using a couch cushion as a shield, but Cosmo's trained jaws quickly tore through the dense fabric. Amid the chaos, Cosmo constantly monitored both criminals, denying them any tactical advantage, a skill perfected during numerous operations to apprehend groups of offenders. Samuel drew a knife, but Cosmo swiftly attacked, forcing him to stagger and drop his weapon. In the dim light, Cosmo's eyes glowed with the same intensity that once made him a police legend. Taking advantage of the moment, Maria grabbed the phone and called for help from his former colleagues. Patrol cars arrived with flashing lights, and some officers immediately recognized their brave, four-legged former partner. Eric and Samuel were arrested while attempting to flee, this time subdued by uniformed officers. The investigative team followed protocols Cosmo had once been trained to execute. News of the retired police dog's bravery spread quickly in law enforcement circles. Many remembered Cosmo from his service days, and the award ceremony at the police station took on special significance. 60 folding chairs were occupied by active and retired officers, many of whom had worked with Cosmo at various times. Among the photos of other service dogs on the walls hung an old picture of Cosmo during his days on active duty. Colonel Ramirez, who had once proudly awarded Cosmo for his service, now pinned a new medal to his collar for saving a civilian and aiding in the capture of dangerous criminals. Many of his former colleagues came to honor the dog, who had proven that once a police officer, he would always be a police officer. Local TV crews didn't just capture the story of a heroic dog, they documented the return of a legend to active duty. After the ceremony, life settled back into its usual rhythm, but now the neighbors knew their safety was protected by more than just a loyal companion. It was ensured by a seasoned professional. Cosmo's new medal took pride of place beside the police awards his former colleagues had gifted Maria. Photos from the award ceremony adorned the album, capturing the highlights of his extraordinary career. Maria often gazed at her loyal companion, reflecting on the remarkable twist of fate that united a lonely elderly woman with a retired police dog. She was endlessly grateful for the rainy day that led her to the animal shelter and changed both their lives forever. What an incredible story! If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so please leave a comment below. See you in the next video.